begin with the analysis of the DILR section of 2022 EOM CAT 4. In this analysis, we will be looking at four things. We will be looking at question mapping in terms of difficulty level. We will be looking at the number of expected attempts, the expected score, and the percentile score mapping. So let us begin with the first area, which is question mapping in terms of difficulty level. We will begin with the easy questions. So there were two easy sets in this mock. The first easy set was based on a spider chart in which we had an IIT aspirant who usually studies for 13 hours every day, but for a period of 10 days, he engages in one or more of 5 activities. These are various activities, and if he does any of these activities, the usual number of hours that he studies for, that reduces. For example, when he plays badminton, he studies for 1 hour less than the usual time. When he watches television, he studies for 2 hours less than the usual time, and so on. And it is given that if he does more than one activity on any particular day, the total reduction is equal to the sum of the reductions caused by the various activities. Also, the most important point here, that he makes it a point not to do any activity on any 2 consecutive days. And also, he does not do more than 2 activities on any of the 10 days. So using all this information, we could have found out the combination of activities that the aspirant does on each of the 10 days. Because we could have seen that, okay, he does a maximum of 2 activities on any particular day, and he does not repeat activities on consecutive days. So then looking at the possibilities, looking at the combinations, we could have found out exactly which activities the aspirant does on each of the 10 days, and we could have easily solved this set. So this set was an easy set. We should have solved each of the 4 questions and got all of them correct. The next set was based on Venn diagram. So this was a 4-set Venn diagram, and this was fairly easy. This was actually based on a CAT DILR set. Now, we all know that for the CAT, for the DILR section of the CAT, Venn diagram is extremely important. So 3-set Venn diagrams, 4-set Venn diagrams, both are extremely important for the CAT. And therefore, this is one set that you definitely should have solved in this paper, especially since this was an easy set. Now, if by now you are not very comfortable with 3-set Venn diagrams or 4-set Venn diagrams, I will recommend that you make it a point to practice it enough that your foundation is strong in this particular topic, because historically we have seen that Venn diagrams is extremely important for the CAT. So this was an easy set that everyone should have attempted and should have got all 4 questions correct. Next, we had a moderate and time-consuming set, which was based on stacked bar charts. So we had one chart in which we had the product-wise breakup of number of phones sold in 4 cities. In another chart, we had the city-wise breakup of the number of phones sold of each type. Now, at the beginning, this might have seemed confusing because we had 2 different charts. We had stacked bar charts, and we might have found it difficult to correlate the information, to combine the 2 charts and get a proper picture of the data. But given a little bit of time, this set was very solvable. If we spent a little time calmly thinking about it, we could have easily combined the 2 charts and formed a table in which we had all the information, in which we had the number of units sold in terms of X or in terms of an assumed value for each of the types of phones in each of the cities. So this set was definitely solvable. At the beginning, if it did seem confusing, you just had to persist with it, think about it calmly, combine the information, and then solve the 6 questions that were there. The final set was a difficult set. So in this set, we had 5 athletes who were participating in 5 different activities and getting different ranks from 1 to 5 in each of the activities. Now, many people might have thought that this is an easy set. Why? Because we only had 4 points of information here. A, B, C, D. So this is a common mistake. People think, okay, we have only 4 points of information, so how difficult can this set be? But this set was definitely a difficult set. It was difficult to find out the ranks of the 5 athletes in each of the activities based on only these 4 points of information. It would have required a lot of thought, and there would have been the time pressure of the exam, and we might have missed out on an easy set or the moderate set. If we persisted with this difficult set, we might have been able to solve it, but it would probably still have taken a lot of time. So this set should have been left for the end after dealing with the other 3 sets. And if we had time at the end, we could have attempted this set. Now, we will look at the expected attempts and the expected score. So the spider chart, that was an easy set. 4 questions, all 4 should have been attempted. Venn diagram, also an easy set. 4 questions, all 4 should have been attempted. Stacked bar chart, moderate but a little bit time consuming. We should have given it that time. Combined the 2 charts, formed a table, and then attempted the 6 questions. And then finally, the ranking puzzle set, difficult set, which we should have left for the end if we had time at the end. And even if we didn't have time, 0 attempts was perfectly fine for this set because it was a difficult set. And we all know by now that in the CAT, we first have to attempt the easy questions, then the moderate questions, and then if we have time, we have to attempt the difficult questions, not the other way around. So therefore, out of these 14 expected attempts, even if you had got 2 incorrect from the moderate and time consuming set, even then you would have got 12 questions correct. So 12 correct and 2 incorrect, that would have fetched you a score of 34. That is the expected score for the average student in the DILR section of this paper. And this score of 34 would have got you 98 percentile. So the 80 percentile cutoff for the DILR for this paper was 18 marks, 90 percentile cutoff was 24 marks, 95 percentile cutoff was 29 marks, 99 percentile cutoff was 42 marks, and 100 percentile cutoff was 51 marks. Now, if you did not perform as per your expectations in this paper, please make sure you conduct a thorough analysis, see where you went wrong, whether you wasted too much time on a difficult set, whether you made some silly mistakes, whether you felt the pressure of time, and so on. So that is it for the DILR analysis of this paper.
And here we are at the end of 2022 EOM CAT 4. Let's understand the quant section. 22 questions, a little bit biased towards arithmetic. There's more than half of the paper was arithmetic. 5 questions from algebra, 5 from geometry, and 12 from arithmetic. Algebra had 2 questions from linear equations, 2 from inequalities, and 1 from functions. Triangles, there were 2 questions, quadrilaterals 2, and circles there were 2. No coordinate geometry, and no mensuration also. Arithmetic 2 was not very well spread, quite a bit difficult paper. Numbers 3 questions, time speed distance 3 questions, and PNC 3 questions. 9 questions out of the 12 were from 3 topics, 3 chapters. 2 from progressions and 1 from ratios. No percentage, no profit and loss. But okay. Now this was not a very easy paper. It was not moderate. Although the questions appear to be moderate, they are a little biased, bent towards difficult rather than purely moderate. So I'm putting this as a little moderate, but towards difficulty, towards difficult. The number of attempts also, I'm expecting a little less from this paper. Out of these 22 questions, 5 were easy. Only 5 were easy. That was what is the main part why I'm reducing the number of expected attempts. Only 5 easy, 2 difficult, and 15 questions were moderate. with some being a typical towards difficulty level, some were typically knowledge based. You know something, you know it, otherwise you don't know it. So with that, let's understand the questions. We'll go question to question, question by question, in the order they appeared in the paper. And let's see what you could have done. I'll focus on people who would have probably scored 98 percentile. So with that in mind, we'll discuss, of course, the other percentiles also at the end. But with that in mind, we'll discuss the paper. I'm expecting a 98 percentiler to attempt 16 questions out of the 22. This time a little low, as I said, 16 attempts. Let's see the questions. The first question was for maxima minima inequalities. For those who know it, those who have done it, they know that all you have to do is put y is equal to z. Put y is equal to z, create a quadratic equation in x, and solve it. So fairly within the limits of those people. And those who have not reached maxima minima inequalities, obviously this could be a little difficult to understand. The second question, time speed distance, as you can see, is a bit more lengthy than it is difficult. It's more lengthy to read. Just look at the number of lines that you will have to read. This but should have been done. Anybody who is expecting 98, even a 90 percentiler should have done this question. The question itself is not difficult. Just go through the questions, standard calculations, and there will be an answer quite quickly. The only time consumed will be in reading the question rather than in solving it. But doable. This should have been done. A very standard type of a question. Square, square, squares, and then something. So ultimate aim in such questions is to form squares. Something square plus something square plus something, plus only, not minus. So summation of 3, 4, 5 squares has to be 0, which means ultimately each of them has to be 0. A very standard type of a question. Probably, maybe I could talk this as easy rather than moderate. I have classified this as moderate. But maybe sometimes I feel, no, this could have been an easy question. People should have known these things. So this was obviously to be done. Question on geometry. Or rather, I would say it appears to be more of geometry, but just a situation-based, calculation-based something. A rectangle is given. Now the triangle is given only to tempt people into starting to calculate. The area of the triangle is given, ABC. Degree is given, right angle and 90. So it's a 30, 60, 90 triangle. People will start calculating the length and breadth of the paper, of the triangle. What is the length of the height of the triangle? The legs, 2 legs, what will be the length? Not needed actually. We know the area of the triangle. So if you form a rectangle here, like this, you know the area of this rectangle, combine 2 triangles. So just double the triangle to get a rectangle. And then CD, as you are told, is 7 times BC. So simply multiply the area by 8, double it, and then multiply by 8, and you will have the area of the rectangle. It's more to do with understanding of the situation rather than the calculations. Less to do with geometry. Geometry was only to tempt people into wasting away their time. So yes, I believe people should not have got into this trap. I would have classified this as an easy question, and I am classifying this as an easy question. The next in permutation combination is quite a standard question. Arrangement is already done by the question itself. The question itself asks you for a particular order. So all you have to do is do the selection. Should be a very easy question as such, quite an easy question as such. Another question more to do with linear equations. Father distributing his wealth among 4 sons. Eldest gets 1/3 of what the others get, 1/3 of the others. 1/4 of the others, 1/5 of the others. So what did the youngest one get? If you frame equations, this is lengthy and moderate. But if you know the situation, kya karna hai yahan pe? This is an easy question, can be done very fast. It saves a lot of time. This is an easy question. Find out the shortcut. The 7th question was functions and logarithms combined. A function which is logarithm based. This was a difficult question. Maybe many people have not even reached functions, logarithms. But still, even if you had reached, I would feel, okay, leave this question. If you left this question, I would not be worried. Okay, good enough to leave this. However, of course, if I discuss it quite, if you go little from the question towards the options, a little option towards the questions, try to solve both the ways, that would be manageable. So I'm classifying this as difficult, and maybe it could have been left. This is a question which is based on pure knowledge. You know something, you know it. A, B, C, and N are all natural numbers. Anybody a bit interested in maths should know that this is possible only if N is equal to either 1 or 2. N can't be anything else other than 1 and 2. It can't, of course, 0 is not a natural number, but it cannot be 0. It cannot be, it's just 1 and 2. It cannot be 3 also. And then you know what to do with this. Of course, there were options. It'll be easy to find the options. A bit moderate that way, but manageable for a 98 percentiler. The 9th was time speed distance, including AP-GP. Distances to be covered are in an AP. Manageable, moderate, and manageable. Should be done by almost everybody. The 10th question. Internal angle bisector of a triangle meets the opposite side. Two sides are given. What is the length of the bisector? This is not the median. Understand, this is not the median. It's the bisector. Just look at the solution. From now on, it should be easy. Today, I'm putting it as difficult. This is the second difficult question. You leave it, okay, good enough. Move on. So if we go to the next question, 11th. The only thing here is that usually when such questions are drawn, they are not drawn to scale. And it appears as if the two circles are touching each other. Luckily here, the figure is drawn to the scale. And everybody would realize that yes, the two circles are not touching each other. So I think it should be easy now to calculate. Putting it as moderate. Just Pythagoras, that's it. To calculate D, you need only Pythagoras. But do form the right angle triangle before you use the Pythagoras. To use the Pythagoras, you will have to create the right angle triangle. So create the right angle triangle and just frame and do the Pythagoras. Manageable. A very standard question. 19 prime number. Euler number will be 18. And the power is the square of 18. I am sure you would have known, you know the remainder by now. The 13th question, progressions. This can be a little difficult, but this is almost a little like your classroom question. Just a little one step ahead of that. AGP. In arithmetico-geometric progression, you know what to do, how to get the value of S. Now, the only change here is that 3, 8, 14, 21 are not an AP, it's a degree 2. If the degree, AP is a degree 1, this is degree 2, then do it twice. You know what to do for AP, just do it twice and you will have your answer. So I'm putting it as moderate. and manageable. Maybe a bit dicey about this. Maybe you could have skipped this question. Maybe yes. Maybe a 98 percentiler, 99 percentiler can do this, but otherwise this question may be skipped. Okay, good enough. Even the 14th may be skipped by, if you are expecting 90 percentile, you can right now, you can skip this question. Anybody above 90, 92? Maybe yes, this is not something worth skipping. It is worth doing. The 15th was an easy question. One number is missed and the total result is 1234, the summation of the other numbers. Estimate till where you have found, where you are supposed to add. Find that total and the difference is what you missed. I mean, somebody has missed. Quite a standard type of a question. So this is easy and it must be done. You cannot skip this question. This is also easy. Quite something that sometimes even in school age, maybe sometimes in our younger years, people ask such questions, riddles, puzzles. So this is probably one of those things which we might have been doing since a bit of childhood, maybe not childhood, but teenage. So this is something worth doing, should not have been missed. Classroom question, something that you might have probably discussed in your classroom, something which is probably in your books, very similar to that. Instead of cakes or maybe instead of apples, you have now 600 grams of rice and 800 grams. That's the only difference. Otherwise, it's very similar to that. A question from ratios also. You can take it as linear equations also, but it's more to do with ratios. You can do it better, faster with ratios. Moderate question this. And yes, this, who should do this question? 98 percentilers should have done it. 95 percentilers might have skipped it. 90, 80, yes, skip it. Not because it is difficult only. It's lengthy. It's very lengthy in reading, understanding, finding the diagram, drawing it. And then TSD, with including geometry. It has a bit of a geometry, a bit of time speed. Main thing is time speed distance, but a bit of geometry. And it is more to do with RC, reading comprehension. I mean, the length. So for people who are at 80, 90 percentile, maybe right now they can leave it. They can prepare themselves for such questions. They have some time, but today they could have left it. But 99 percentile, 98, 99, 100, you should have done this question. Geometry, pure application of geometry, a little tricky situation. A square sides are given with 4 corners. Obviously, a square has 4 corners, but with the 4 corners as centers, 4 quarter circles are drawn. Now, 99% everybody would have started drawing quarter circles right now without even reading the next. But the next is the more important. What type of quarter circles are there? They are not all equal. Opposite quarter circles are congruent, but adjacent ones are not. Such that all the quarter circles are tangential to adjacent ones, and the quarter circles with centers at A and C, opposite vertices, they are also tangential. So now it makes you think about how to draw the figure. If you can just understand how to draw the figure, calculations would be quite easy. I am putting this as moderate question. People at 85 percentile, 90%, 90, I think they could still manage it. 85 people who are expecting or are right now at 85 levels, maybe they could have avoided it. How many natural numbers less than 1 lakh can be found? Multiple ways of solving the question. Standard type of a question, not very tricky, doable. This is a moderate question, doable question. And permutation combinations again. a black and a white square. They are not to be in the same, so that they are in the same. Okay, wait. So that they are in the same row or column. They have to be in the same row and column. Quite easy, quite manageable. Very, not very easy, but okay, just because it's a square chessboard and you might not be having done a lot of questions on chessboard. Just because of that, it might have been like a bit frightening, but this is very easy question, very easy question. And the last, again, this question looks a little bit more of frightening than it actually is. It appears to be difficult, but it is not. Tn is equal to -1 raised to n into Tn minus 1. Sometimes I see people are frightened of Tn, Tn minus 1, AI, Aij, Aijk. Well, for all i's, something like this. People seem to leave such questions. Try to understand such questions and how to approach. Take a few tries. Put something n is equal to 1, n is equal to 2, n is equal to 3. I mean, n of course starts from greater than 2 in this question. So put n is equal to 2, 3, 4 and try to see what happens. And very fast you will be able to, once you reach 3, 4, you reach n is equal to 4, 5, you will realize, this is the pattern. In many CAT questions, all you need to do is understand the pattern that is developing. So here you have to just understand the pattern that develops. Once you see that pattern, this question will become easy. So I'm putting it ultimately as moderate, but manageable for anybody who is above 95 percentile. Anybody who is targeting 95 should have done this. So out of those 22 questions, 5 were easy, 15 moderate, 2 difficult. All 5 easy should have been done. Out of the 15 moderate, 11 should have been done. Maybe we skipped one, we missed identifying a moderate question. We thought it was difficult and you left it. But anybody who is expecting 98 percentile should have had 16 attempts at least. 16 attempts with 2 wrong for a 98 percentile, just 2 wrong. 14 correct, 2 wrong. With a score of 40, I would expect somebody to get 98 percentile. 98 percentile can be achieved at somewhere around 16 attempts with just 2 errors maximum. 99, probably you should have made no errors in these 16 questions. Maybe you could have had one more attempt with 1 error. But if you had attempted all these 16 without error, you would have crossed 99. For a 100 percentiler, we can see that it needs 18 questions, 18 attempts, 2 more out of those moderate ones. 95 percentile is at 33 marks. So you can have maybe 13 attempts, 1 wrong, 12 attempts, 1 wrong. Something like 13 attempts with 1 wrong can achieve a 95 percentile. 95 percentile. 90 percentile can be achieved with a 27 marks, which means net 9 correct. So maybe something like just 12 attempts with 1 wrong. See, when there are 12 attempts only, I would expect a little higher accuracy. If you are making errors, you should increase your attempts by 1 or 2. But if you have studied well, if you are not making errors, then 12 attempts with 1 wrong would fetch you 90 percentile. For 80 percentile, you only need 19, something like 8 attempts, 1 wrong. 8 attempts only, just attempting 5 easy, 3 moderate ones, and maybe one of them is wrong. You still are at 80 percentile. So if you are at that level, maybe it is now possible for you to focus on and improve. Try to achieve then a little more and you will be soon at 90 percentile. So this is the overall analysis of the quant section of the 2022 EOM CAT 4.
So here we are. EOM CAT 4. We are done with 4 EOMs out of 25 scheduled for the year, and we are into the last 6 months of your CAT preparation, probably the last 5 months of your NMAT preparation. And how good was the test? I hope people found it easy. I've been telling it to students for the last few days that they should attempt EOM 4 simply because the test isn't really easy. It is as difficult as the previous tests, but in terms of comprehension, in terms of understanding what was there on the test, this would require less effort. So that is why, even though the same difficulty level, this test was probably easier to manage than the other tests, not easier to solve. So parameters of analysis, this is what we cover as always: time allocation, what should you have done, selection and sequencing. And I start with my overall analysis, which is summarized here: learning to make tough choices. Why tough choices? Let me explain in the upcoming slides. So that's what this is. As always, 24 questions in 40 minutes. 16 questions in reading comprehension, 8 questions in verbal logic, same old format. Should we experiment? Nah, we are already too much into struggling with following the rules. Let's first get adjusted to doing the standard, and then we'll talk about or think about experimenting. First passage, science, climate change. Undoubtedly the easiest to read passage out of 4. Skeptics vis-a-vis reality. Easy to moderate overall passage. Why? The passage was easy to read. The questions were a bit here and there, moderate questions. So 4 questions. The first was a weaken question, which was actually a weaken except question, which is the reason it has been labeled moderate, because you must find 3 answer choices that weaken and the 4th that does not weaken. And for those who have already been taught verbal logic, specifically verbal logic 2, which is weaken and strengthen questions, you must have been told that when you're looking for weaken except, you might also have to look for, in terms of correct answer, an option that is purely redundant. So yeah, that struggle between finding whether your answer choice is redundant or does it strengthen the answer argument, that takes effort. This deserves to be called a moderate question. Then you had an applied information question, again a moderate. Why? Because first and third were close choices. An inference question where the confusion shifted. The previous question, the confusion was between 1 and 3. Now the confusion was between 2 and 4. And then the mention in the passage question, which was actually easier than the other 3. I've called it moderate only because after doing some effort in 3 reasoning based questions, when you have to read so much, it does feel like, and see, this is the tailing effect that happens in a lot of things on your CAT or any mock test that you take. You start with a passage and you're done with question numbers 1, 2, and 3. You've probably given 2-3 minutes, 4 minutes to read the passage, and by the time you finish the third question, you might feel confident, but you also know that you spent around 8 minutes on the passage. Question 4 becomes a sort of a compulsion for you. You want to get it right, and then you also know that you have to read so much to answer the question. So that's what psychologically raises the difficulty level of the question from easy to moderate. Then I had my second passage on history, legitimacy of colonialism. Not weird. So many of you have read these kind of things in your school textbooks or in your regular reading. So yeah, it was just a bland passage to read, nothing exciting in that passage. Questions were challenging. Questions were ridiculously challenging. This was undoubtedly the passage with the toughest questions across all 4. So you had an inference. In fact, both the inference questions were very difficult. The 5th one, obviously, if you look at the explanation, you realize how tough it was. The 7th one, way too close choices. You had an applied information question, which was again like, it is direct reference. That is the only reason it does not qualify as difficult. Otherwise, passage number 2 would have made history in terms of being a passage with all 4 level 3 questions. So we had an applied information, and then we had a strengthened question, which was if false strengthens. So again, that loop of understanding what happens when the sentence is false And accordingly, if the sentence is false, does it weaken or strengthen, or does it remain redundant? Right then, third passage, psychology. Not so much psychology, probably more contemporary in terms of persuasion and business communication. Overall difficulty level, easy to moderate, again, easy to read, mixed bag questions. In fact, the first passage that had what I call an actually easy question. Main idea, it almost feels like either all are correct. I mean, there are multiple correct answers or there's no correct answer. So a bit of a trap there. You had two applied information questions here, out of which the second was a bomb. I could have classified the second as very difficult also, but let's keep it as difficult because understanding the question itself is a challenge, but that's what CAT does. That's what CAT has wanted people to do. If you really are targeting something like 100 percentile, you have to go deeper and target those questions that others will not. That's what puts you at 100 percentile. So 4 questions, 2 applied information questions, a level 3, a level 2, a level 1, and then a level 3 again. And yes, the proverb questions, like if you don't know the proverbs, you would better just leave out that question. Last passage, philosophy. Summary of the passage, philosophers are not philo sleepers. Yep, that's how we play. Philo sleepers, people who love sleep. Philosophers don't like sleep. Moderate to read, moderate questions. 13th and 15th, both were mentioned in the passage questions. You had to find out from the passage what is given. 13th, a struggle to justify why not option 2. 15th is just a what question. 14th was easy. If you understood the Descartes view. If you did not understand the Descartes view in the passage, then it was a difficult question. That's the extreme. That's what happens with applied information questions when you are expected to understand a concept in the passage and find an example or application in the actual answer choices. Whether it is now or it is actual CAT, if you don't understand the basis of the application, just leave that question as it is. And then the inference question where, as I see it, for most of you who have reached here and are done with like 25 minutes of the test or 30 minutes of the test, 16 question, you will probably feel like everything can be inferred. So verbal logic, paraexamples, 17th, 18th, and 19th, one moderate, one difficult, and one easy. Gilgamesh to television, easy to read. If you get stuck between the confusion of 2.4 and 4.2, you can take your chances, but yes, you also know that paraexamples, you don't have negative markings. You can take your chances, that's why I said that. But if it is taking too much of time, don't waste so much time. 4 fundamental forces of the universe, very difficult because when we created this question and circulated this among our team, I could see the discord in terms of deciding whether 4 should come before 1 or after 1. Yes, it's a trap. It's a huge trap. It requires significant understanding of coherence. So even if you have been taught paraexamples and verbal logic, it will take you some practice of difficult questions to become proficient with something like what you saw in question number 18. 19th, on the other hand, was very easy, extremely easy. Like if you got 19th incorrect and you have been taught paraexamples, something is seriously wrong with the way you approach paraexamples. Summary questions. By now, you might have realized that summary questions are precisely the questions where you just cannot expect something easy. I know that because summary questions were created as a sort of an escape option for those who want to run away from passages. Those who struggle with passages, RCs, because they are long and therefore would rather deal with a short passage, they jump into summaries usually. So this time also 3 summaries, casual versus free will, stakeholder capitalism, Nazis and the free press, except the 22nd one. Both were difficult. Even if it was like, for example, the stakeholder capitalism passage, even if it seemed easy to read, the choices were really close. And you know that summary questions, even though they are verbal logic questions, there is a negative marking. That brings you to undoubtedly the easiest section in the entire test out of the context. 23rd, extremely easy. Like there was this one question in paraexamples, which was a sitter, and then 23rd. These two are the easiest questions you will ever see in any mock. And then a 24th, augmented reality, moderate. A bit of like, it is the last question in the test, in the section. Maybe most of you did not even reach this question. So all those who did, yeah, it is an effort. And I have still not reached a point, because I know that most of you are still probably being taught RCs or prep RC or vocab empower. I will not have right now. I won't have a strategy that says start with verbal logic. I am not an impractical person. I will never tell you that you should start with verbal logic when I know that we have not even taught you verbal logic yet. But in 2 months, yes. Within 2 months in the analysis, you will start seeing a lot of our suggestions that say start with verbal logic, start with out of context, and then go to passages, because that's where we know that we've taught you these things and you can implement them. So this was your overall classification: 3 easy questions, 11 moderate questions, 10 difficult questions. That's why the paper has been labeled moderate, not moderate to difficult. No, because whatever score you want, you can pretty much, the target score expected correct is 15 out of an expected number of attempts 19. So that can be managed by being 100% good, 100% accurate with easy and moderate. I would call a paper moderate to difficult if you have to dig into the difficult questions to increase your score. So to reach a 98 percentile. So this is what you should have done. No, this is what was the expected outcome. This is what you should have done. Started with the first passage, easiest to read, 3 minutes to read, 4 to 5 minutes to solve, and gotten me 4 attempts, 4 correct. Yes. People who are getting 98 and 99 and 100 percentile in verbal, sorry, you have to get to the habit of 4 out of 4 correct. And if you have solved RCs, but you haven't started OPATs yet, if you're done with the reading comprehension module, but for whatever reason, you haven't attempted the one passage at a time, OPATs, in your Vega test portal, yes, it will be a struggle for you to get 4 out of 4 correct. Why? Because you've never gotten 4 out of 4 correct on a regular basis. It just happens as a fluke. So go and solve your OPATs and learn how to get 4 out of 4 correct on a passage. I start with passage number 1, then I would have gone to passage number 4, similar performance. Maybe here I get 1 extra incorrect. That is okay, because passage 4 wasn't really so what do you call it? It wasn't really as easy as passage number 1. So 1, 4, 3. These are my recommended passages. These 3 you should have attempted at any cost. Passage 2, I am putting it as an alternative to parajumbles. You could have either gone to passage 2 and gotten me in maybe 7 to 8 minutes. You could have gotten me 4 attempts 2 correct, or you could have gone to parajumbles, and in 4 to 5 minutes you should have attempted 2 and gotten 2 correct. So if you haven't been taught parajumbles, but you're still targeting a 98 percentile, then you have to do whatever is the best you can with passage number 2. And then out of context and summary, which would contribute to out of context, yes, 2 attempts, 2 correct. Even if one was easy and one was moderate, you have to start getting moderate questions correct. I mean, then that is the thumb rule for anybody targeting above 95 percentile. So the summary of the overall approach is, after the 3 passages and out of context, which should have probably jumped up, but I did not, only because I wanted to show that there's an alternative between passage number 2 and parajumbles. So after you finish those 3 passages and out of context questions, all you had to do, either attempt a passage or any other verbal logic questions. And then internally, you could have done a permutation. Maybe say you are actually really, really good with summary questions. And instead of getting me 1 attempt and 1 correct in summary, you could have given more time to summary questions and gotten me 2 attempts and 2 correct. But this is how it works out. Yes, the instructions, the overall summary of the section initially was learning to make tough choices. 19 attempts and 15 correct. The scope, the freedom, the flexibility of getting up to 4 incorrect, you don't see it all the time. You see it only once in a while in my papers. So this is what you saw. Expected attempts for 98 percentile, 19 attempts, 15 correct for a net score of 41. At 41, you would be at a 98 percentile. You get me 2 less incorrect. You convert 2 incorrect to 2 correct. You go from 98 to 99 percentile. And then you want to reach 100 percentile. It's a jump of 10 points. 10 points mean you get me 3 more correct. And 59 is not impossible in this paper. I don't think right now you might think 59 is impossible, but maybe in 3 months or 4 months, you would find on the same paper, you won't find 59 as an impossible task. On the other hand, same story, 37 to 41, 95 to 98 percentile, just one less incorrect. One question that you marked incorrectly, had you marked it correctly, you would have gone from 37 to 41. Same is with the jump in 90 to 95. One question, look at what you lose for that one question that you attempt confidently or out of fluke or whatever it is. You get into a question and you don't get it right, and your percentile falls from 98 to 95 or from 95 to 90. That is just avoidable. 27 at an 80 percentile, 27 should have been, as I see it, 27 should have been like a breeze for everybody who is at their intermediate level of preparation, which means anybody and everybody who is done with their RC module and has solved those books, getting a 27 should have been very, very easy. Anyways, so these are my overall score predictions for your EOM CAT 4. 100 percentile would be at 144. Yes, the paper internally, the sections have been adjusted. But if you remember the 100 percentile from the previous test, EOM CAT 3 was also 144. So that's how we play around, and that's how CAT will also play around. And yes, if you're still wondering why your 100 percentile is not the summation of those 3 sections, no, that's not how it works. 144, 100 percentile can be secured even if one of your sections, the score is not 100 percentile. So 144 for 100 percentile and 59 for an 80 percentile. Look at the difference. Almost 2.5 times. Almost 2.5 times. But then from 59 to 71, an increase of 12 marks, 3 questions, 1 extra correct in each section. From 71 to 85, an increase of 14 marks, probably 5 additional correct, or maybe 3 additional correct and 1 additional less incorrect. 85 to 103, 18 marks, 2 extra correct in each section. These numbers, somewhere you have to paste this ladder and remember, how do you climb this ladder? Every test you take, if you've fallen from 70, if you've fallen between 90 and 80, this is what you want to remind yourself. How do you make sure that you stop getting that one extra incorrect? How do you ensure that you pick that one question correctly, which will take you from a 27 to a 33 or a 33 to a 37 in one of the sections and pump up your overall score? So that's it. That's what we have to do today. We will see you again in the next 3 weeks with EOM 5. In the meanwhile, we have a session coming up on how to analyze a mock in the middle of June. I hope to see you there. Enjoy your entire month ahead. May is gone, June is starting. Most of you would be getting free from their college exams or whatever assignments you had. Please make sure that you invest your June in a way that wherever you stand at the end of May, at the end of June, you are standing at something that is significantly more comfortable in terms of your CAT preparation. Good luck to everyone. I'll see you people soon. Bye-bye.